Okay, everybody ready? Good evening and welcome to this special meeting of the South Range Board of Education. Let us first stand and say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. First up is roll call, Mr. Phillips.
Taylor Christian.
Here.
Terry Lally.
Here.
Amy White.
Yes, here.
Ralph Wentz.
Here.
Brian Bagwell.
Here.
First up on new business is discussion about modification to the 2021 school calendar. Bethany, would you like to discuss that to some degree?
Sure. We are asking to just change the start date for the students. The school calendar that was adopted by the board will stand. We are just asking to have the board approve starting our students September 8th. So it's the delay of the students' start date, not the calendar change.
Okay. Next up would be some policies for consideration for our meeting, our regular meeting in August. And Bethany, would you like to discuss those?
Yes. Per the governor's order, we were to develop a mask policy. So Neola, who oversees our board policies, has provided us with a policy for protective facial covering during epidemic events. So if you see on there, and I know recently, as of like an hour and a half ago, the governor just made a change that masks are K-12 required. This will be our board policy. That's his order. So right now when we're looking at this, our policy still says grades 5-12 shall wear face masks or face shields. Everything else is also in here. There's further back, it talks about if you get to this spot where a student is just refusing, and it's not a student who maybe medically or physically needs to have a different facial covering. We're not going to deny them an education. We can provide them a remote education. So punishment would not be a denial of education. It just might be a change of placement. Okay. The other one is about attendance. Again, the board policy was changed to really, really look at how are we going to combat the intermittent absences due to COVID. So this policy talks about making COVID-related illnesses excused, mandatory when they have to be quarantined due to close proximity, close contact, it would be excused even if they're not sick. So the policy adds that to the attendance policy, so that's the major change in those.
Okay, any discussion from the board on either of these things at this stage of the game?
I just want to clarify, per the governor's orders as of today, that we have to change it from 5th grade to 12th grade.
We'll have to follow the governor's orders to do K-12 because that is his order. So that would be the order that's out, which is, Neola, we did get an email that they would get back to us, but as of right now, that is an order. And if that goes away, this doesn't go away because we adopted into board.
Okay.
If there's changes before the 17th, obviously we'll have to probably reassess that one. But right now, that's two different orders. This is policy, that's order.
Got it.
Okay, any other discussion at this stage of the game? If there is not, we'll go back and I'd ask for a motion for the modification of this 2021 school calendar. Can I have a motion to accept that change?
I motion.
Terry moves. Can I have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. Mr. Phillips, roll call, please.
Taylor Christian.
Yes.
Terry Lally.
Yes.
Ralph Wentz.
Yes.
Amy White.
Yes.
Brian Bagwell.
Yes.
Next up, and these are board policy for consideration. We are not adopting them. We will adopt them at our regular August meeting. May I have a motion to consider the board policy changes here?
So moved.
Taylor moves. May I have a second? Second. Brian seconds. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And motion carries. And back to Bethany.
Okay, I want to thank, first of all of our families who took the time out of the last week to fill out a question and send us some different questions to look at and evaluate. As we know, hence the K-12 mask mandate change, the world of education is changing daily with different orders, regulations, restrictions that have come out. Since our initial survey 5 weeks ago, things have changed of what we really can and can't do, or should or shouldn't do in a building, the repercussions of if we do different things. So everything has really started to change. So with that, what we did yesterday, taking everybody's concerns and questions, we did a walkthrough of, as if we were a student walking in the building. We set up the classroom, how far they would be apart, exactly what would happen if a student was positive and how that would impact the class. So we kind of walked it through. It was about 4 hours yesterday that Mr. Zolik and Mr. Rohn and I really just took time to walk it through and see exactly what impact this is going to have on children based on our present plan. And before I get into the plan, some of the questions that parents asked, I have kind of separate, so I just kind of want to hit on some of them because I got recommendations from the health department. Our medical advisory team will be meeting next Monday. It's a handful of doctors that are parents or community members, as well as some staff members in the administration. Some questions that were asked. What is the definition of a case? Per the health department, that means it is a confirmed positive person with COVID. What is the definition of a contact? Someone who is exposed in a case 6 foot or less for 15 minutes or more. It does not matter if they're behind a shield, a mask, or a barrier. It is 6 feet no matter what. What will happen if a child is come in close contact or a teacher has come in close contact for an extended 15 minutes or longer? Anyone deemed direct close contact of a confirmed positive case will be quarantined for 14 days. Even if they have a negative test, after 14 days symptom-free, they can return to work or school. Are asymptomatic people contagious? Yes. They are active carriers, and there is potential that they could develop symptoms. For example, if a primary confirmed case on a volleyball team is positive, the team would need to be quarantined for 10 days. And when they talk about that, the regulations that have been provided to us were, they ask how far back they had contact with the athletes, so that it's not just last week on Wednesday they were there. They'll ask the principal, the coaches, the people at school, well, how far back was it that they actually made contact? They ask when the onset of symptoms are. They ask when the test date was, and then they go back 48 hours. So there's lots of questions the health department walks us through and works with us. Sometimes we are going to be able to make an immediate decision. Sometimes we may have to sit with the coaching staff and kind of do a close contact search and then make decisions from there. How would you handle students or staff if someone in the intermediate school is confirmed? So this was just presented to all of us superintendents, so just in a school. That person would be identified through case contact tracing and be made to quarantine for 14 days. No further action would need to be taken at school except for a plan for educating the child while out of school. Follow the flow chart that they've provided for districts. How would you handle it if a student was positive in a school system that could not maintain 6 feet or further? The close contact would mean that any student within the 6 feet circle would need to quarantine for 14 days. What are the recommendations? Again, quarantine for 14 days. Keep an eye on the other children they may have come in contact with and make sure you educate them. So those are some of the largest questions that were kind of repetitively brought forward through the question and answer document. We also had some questions that were, how are we notified? Who will notify us? How frequently will we be notified? Our district nurse and our administrators will be the point of contact. If they can't reach her, they'll call them, and if they can't reach them, they'll call me from the health department. When we asked how long it will take for the health department to notify us, at this point, I'm waiting for that answer till tomorrow at our meeting. It's really dependent on how quickly it gets in the system, and I think gets to our county to notify us. Another question was, if you have a family and one sibling test positive, we would have to do the close contact tracing around every one of those siblings as well, if they test positive. So some other questions that were asked that are just kind of more direct answers. Chromebooks. We were asked if people could buy from our distributors. We can't do that, and to be honest, they're on delay right now, so it wouldn't help them to try to go through us. But if a family needs a Chromebook, all they have to do is call their administration. We will provide them with a Chromebook. We will not, let them go without. Masks, as we heard today, the order is now K-12. Students have to wear a mask. If they have special needs or if they have a medical diagnosis that we have to look into, of course, that we will not discriminate against the students, and we will meet with each family and make sure we accommodate them. Another question was asked, intervention, special education services. I'll touch base a little bit more on that in the presentation. Temperature checks. A lot of parents were asking why we aren't purchasing the giant scanners for when you walk in. I'll touch on that with the coming through the presentation, but I do want to, we have a quote, we've looked into it, and we are investigating it, but I think there's actually a better option for our buildings. What happens if a student arrives ill? Per the recommendations from the state of Ohio, we will have isolation rooms. Ms. Peterson usually just works out of the elementary clinic anyway, so we will use the middle school and the high school clinics as our isolation rooms because we can keep an eye on them. They will be quarantined away from people, and then we will alert Mr. Pagnotta, and it will come and be disinfected immediately upon the child leaving. How many positive cases does it take to shut a school down? That is an answer I cannot tell you, but we will work directly with the health department because, that's a complete unknown as to what the recommendation is. And working with the board here is where the decision would be at. Quarantining, I just talked about the close contact, 14 days. Teacher or student test positive, it will be the close contacting. Just as any time a teacher falls ill, we will provide a substitute for the classroom. Busing, will my siblings be able to sit together if we're doing 2 to a seat? Yes. Will my siblings, because their siblings have to wear a mask? Yes. Music and band, extracurriculars, we are required to offer extracurriculars and things. We will work with, I'm looking into it further, how it would work remotely, what are some solutions if people choose remote but want to continue to grow as a musician. So we'll look at some ways to best service students like that. Those are some of the questions. So some of the things that really came up, again, I've kind of mentioned it. If we bring any bit of 70% or more back into our building face-to-face, we cannot do 6 feet of distance. We will require our students to sit behind barricades with masks on and never leave their seat. We will be asking our teachers, and we have the whole plan developed, we will ask our teachers to rotate in so students aren't in the hallway congregating too much, and we're not, in a sense, forcing them to continually step away from each other. And we thought long and hard yesterday, I want to say it was about 4 hours, really walking it like we were students. And how is this impacting the academics, the social-emotional beings that we are supposed to be in charge of? So with that said, we are going to propose a change to our initial plan because we do not feel that we can academically, socially, emotionally, and healthy, keeping track of their health, and even fiscally, provide a responsible reentry if we expect all students to walk back in our building. And the presentation will address many, many other plans or questions that were out, and actually by shifting gears to a different version of a plan, it actually does away with a lot of other parent questions and concerns. It satisfied their needs. I cannot thank the administrative team Mr. Matos, Ms. Lewis, Mr. Pagnotta, everybody, Mr. Rome, Mr. Zolik, just the time and effort we have put constantly reviewing and reviewing and reviewing. And if we could have figured out a way to make everybody feel comfortable waiting a little bit longer, we probably would have requested that, but we understood people wanted to kind of know. And based off the initial survey, we thought we were going to be able to do it. George, if you would like to link, so families that are listening, George is going to put a link on the homepage of the website so you actually can just open this and view it better, because we understand that you can't necessarily see it if you're watching from home very clearly. We are proposing that our district does a hybrid alternating day schedule. We understand that this still has an impact on families, just as our delayed start and students coming early and late and going home early and later than each other. Students will attend face-to-face on assigned days and complete remote work when not in school. Schedule will be as such. Students will be assigned either Monday, Wednesday, alternating Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, alternating Fridays. District administration is going to start working on developing rosters. We will first take into account family groups so that we have families here at the same days that, so that they're home on the same days to accommodate parents. We will look at students' needs. We will look at different other options as well to make sure that we have a nice balance. The school district will return to 7:50 to 2:45 school time. We will be back to our full day, which some parents had concerns about us. What are we doing to academics since we shortened the day? There will be one bus route, so we have satisfied the concerns of parents with little ones going home by themselves. The buses will continue to only be 50% full, so we still will be able to do one, possibly two if we need to a seat. But again, they will wear masks, continue to do that. Lockers will be assigned to support social distancing. Now that we only have 50% of our population coming in, they can alternate. Maybe Monday, Wednesday has these lockers with ones in the middle, and the next day would have the other one. So we're naturally, socially keeping the kids from herding together. K-6 students will continue to still eat in their classroom. The reason for this, even though there may only be anywhere from 10 to maybe 13, we will still have the barriers up so they can take their mask off. They can talk freely in their room with some protection while they're eating. They can laugh. They can have that nice social interaction, but not be, it's just a safer situation for our students. 7-12 will be rotating into the lunchroom. We have reduced our lunchroom to 1/4 population, so we are not buying guards for every table and just putting children behind boxes. We will be able to separate out the children to about 100, 120. If we need to, we'll add a table or two. But the students will be able to enjoy lunch separated and have a social time that they need to have. Any student who is remote, I talked to Mrs. Pierce, who runs our food service. If families need to sign up for like a backpack, if they need a lunch to go home at the end of the day for the next day when they're home, we will create a sign up so parents can still have a lunch. Even though they're not here, we could still get a lunch and send it home so there's something for their kids. We will continue to offer that for them. Recess will be spread out. Mr. Matos is kind of changing up the way we used to do recess, where it was like set times. He's blocking it throughout the day. He's able to reduce it to 2 classrooms, which will then equate to 1. So it'll be around 20, 25 kids out at recess. We will have freestanding sanitizer, and then we will disinfect the equipment after they're done playing on their way in. Students will continue to be assigned seats. This will help support with contact tracing. So if a student is in now 5th through 12th grade and they still rotate rooms, because now you only have 10 kids switching rooms, they will still be assigned seats in K-8. I'm sure we could, the high school, once they get their rotations and they know where kids in, and that will help us know who's sitting next to who if we have an issue. Hallway travel has now been reduced by 50%. Arrival and dismissal has also been. Those were 2 big concerns of how are you going to control 400 students, even 300, 200 coming in. We're reducing the amount coming in off of buses and through car riding, so we're naturally able to help support keeping them socially distanced. Why is this best decision for South Range community? By moving to a hybrid schedule with alternating days of attendance, We are able to provide a return to one bus route, which was a parental concern. It also continues, we made some changes that as a district might not, it was right to get the kids here because we socially distance, but there was a concern regarding fuel and wear and tear on our buses. We are back to one route, one start, one end time, reducing time spent on student transitions, cleaning, teacher transitions, which increase student academic time off or on task. We were going to do so much, hey, you need to wash your hands, hey, we need to all go to the bathroom at this time, hey, you need to go to your locker at this time, we need to move in pods and slowly. We are increasing our academic time because we're essentially returning back to what we do here, just with half of our populations on certain days. Prepare and teach students the expectations of online remote learning while practicing for remote days. So the teachers will support, so when the students go home, the older kids' remote activity, the younger kids will be able to take their packet home with them to be done at home. So we can still provide paper pencil. Parents aren't printing things at home. It will come home with the child and then come back the next day. Reduce the amount of close exposure, in turn reducing the amount of close contact tracing. Provide smaller class sizes, which will allow teachers time to personalize learning, fill in the gaps identified from last year's school shutdown. Provide time for acceleration based on student need. Provide social emotional learning with the counselors due to smaller groups. A lot of other parent questions were virtual. That is still an option. If a family is uncomfortable even with only half of the students being in this classroom and would still like to choose remote virtual learning, we are asking that we have a 9-week commitment. The 9-week commitments to start, we will be using our teachers, whether it be the classroom teacher or another teacher in the district, to touch base and work with the children through Google Classroom. So it will be a South Range student. If a parent said, I'm good for the year, I'm committing now, we are going to look at a few different e-learning programs. So it is a built program. You think of how colleges do online learning. It's kind of you work through it at your pace and do your things. And we will still have a South Range teacher or tutor checking in, making sure they're on pace, see if they need any help, work with them. But we're looking at some different options that will support a synchronous going all the way through for them, and it would be more built for their pace and independent learning, but yet still have connection to South Range employees. Some of the things I added in here were, again, concerns of parents, class expectations. We will still arrange classrooms to provide the physical distancing, and with only having half in there, we will be at the maximum amount of space we can do. And there are some rooms that, we're going to be able to get a little beyond 6 feet, which is nice. Wearing masks, the order was masks, so right now, face shields, we will work with the families who have medical issues and need a shield instead. Ensure students maintain the distancing, provide daily reminders. So this is a list of things that the teachers will be trained, and so it'll become part of their daily routines. So we're teaching the kids this social behavior. Using Google Classroom as a common platform, that was a request from families to make sure we were maintaining one platform. So even if we have other e-learning activities and resources, it's all going to be fed into Google Classroom. Know the symptoms and send students to the clinic. They will be trained on that. That first week, the staff will still be here. We ask for the students not to come until the 8th so we can do medical training, clinic training, other different mitigation training with our staff. Notify administration immediately if they are feeling ill. That's a big thing about the teachers. We all know teachers work through being sick. So a lot of parents sent questions kind of saying, what are you going to do about, teachers falling ill? So we will do what we always do. They will be sent home and we will find somebody to cover the room to maintain. As it says here with the masks, this has been altered in the last hour. So K-12 will wear masks in the building. Students will be, as I said, taught physical distancing, follow safety procedures, assist with cleaning of desk materials, other shared items like computers. If we do have to share computers, even though they may be done with it, nobody else is going to use it that day because it's assigned to them, we're still going to wipe it down just so we don't have any issues of cross-touching and other issues. And they will be assigned to seats. Our custodial staff, we are going to have an additional person on staff who will help kind of divide the building in half, spray high-touch items, help with cafeterias with the K-6 in the classrooms, so we can make sure that these high-touch of door handles, these stair handles and things that are routinely being sprayed to help mitigate any issues. We talked a little bit about transitions already. By reducing the population, we are able to safely have the students transition down hallways. We talked about the locker spacing already, and again, following traffic patterns, teaching students not to linger, but with only having half here, you might not have that same group that wants to linger all the time together. Arrival and dismissal. We are returning back to our normal school. So arrival and dismissal will be the same. I know Mr. Matos will be sending something out. We are going to try to work on a 2-lane drive up in the front of the school, trying to get more cars, make it go straight through, trying to help keep a consistent flow in front of his building. That was a question we had talked about earlier before we even started talking about 2 different start and end times. So the elementary, we're going to try to work on that, and that has nothing to do with this, but I just want to make a note, the parents, please keep an eye out for what Mr. Matos may send out about drop off and pick up. Let's see here. When we talk about arrival and dismissal, and we talk about thermoscans, with the fact that we're only bringing half in, so your classroom may have anywhere from 10 to 13 kids, I'm going to investigate buying thermometers. Is there a way we could have people checking it? It would be much more cost efficient than spending $30,000 on thermoscans for our 3 doors. So I'm going to investigate that and look into an alternative way to check temperatures, which will then stop children before they come into the classroom, or as soon as they're at the door, we can check them and send them to the clinic. It was evident parents had a concern, teachers have a concern about that. Just looking for a more cost-efficient way that actually may be more productive, because having students walk through and they just get a color across the top of their head, we're pulling kids quickly and then have to place them somewhere. So if they're individually being sent to the clinic with a read of a thermometer, it might work more successful. Bus drivers, they will have sanitizer on the bus. They will spray all the buses down after their routes, and they will assign seats. Restrooms, now that we don't have as many students in the building, we can return to, we can do whole group bathrooms because it's only 10 students or 14 students in the larger grades or so. So we could do whole group, but we can also work on now sending one at a time, maybe out of the classroom, because you're not going to have as many students. Custodial staff will routinely go around and disinfect bathrooms. We're fortunate in our building. The students have to exit the bathroom to wash their hands. It's in the hallway. So they're not touching the door after they've left. They're washing their hands, and then they're going right to class. There's no door to touch. We've taken care of some of those high-touch areas, so after they have clean hands, they're then not touching something else. Water bottles, that's another thing I think I missed on the other slide. Water fountains are required to be turned off. Our bottle fillers are not. So we are asking parents to send a bottle of water. They can send water bottles with their students, and we can get them filled in the bottle fillers. Recess and lunch, I've kind of reviewed that a little bit, where the students would eat, where the high school and 7th and 8th grade will eat. Recess, we're down to only 2 classrooms, so it'll be 20, 25 kids going outside. We will continually assess that, and as we see a need, if we need to add more space and spread out in different locations, we will. Custodial staff, we have additional support for that. Cafeteria, they are required to wear all the required food service PPE. We have shields and guards for them. So in regards to what the students will be served, everything has to be prepackaged. So if you think of like when you go to a hospital or a place like that and you pick your prepackaged, it will be handed to them so the kids aren't touching all the different things. They're limiting the granola bars and chips to just a few things, so it's easier for the kids to make a quick decision. The students eating in the classroom will have a choice between a hot lunch and like a cool lunch box that you would bring from home kind of lunch. So there will be 2 options. Again, one will be hot, one will be a cold lunch. So they will make a decision in the morning which one they will want, and then they will be delivered to their room. So they will have options. Parents can still pack a lunch. We do ask that please make sure that it arrives with the students. I talked about the clinic isolation. Ms. Peterson has been doing some training on her own. I've been providing her the healthcare stuff from ODH and Mahoning County. They are offering a training for our nurses probably that last week in August at Mahoning County with Ohio Department of Health or Mahoning County. health department as well. So they will get trained and then be able to train our staff with the information that they need to know. But she will be doing all of those things. If students are in a clinic, obviously they're going to have their mask on, but if the order were to go away in the clinic, we are going to ask that they continue to have their masks on. Office procedures, this is still going to be a change. In this district, if you all remember, you walk in the front doors and you're kind of in a glass little box. We're calling it the holding tank because we are going to ask parents to remain in it. They can buzz into the office, talk to the secretary with what they need. If they're there to pick up a child, if they're there to drop something off, we have tables in the foyer there so that you can just leave it and then the secretary will have the student retrieve it or an aide deliver it to the room. If a parent is bringing a child late, all they have to do is buzz the child in. The child will go into the secretary and they will provide them a tardy slip. The older kids can come in themselves and they will get a tardy slip to go right to class. At this time, we are still limiting to no visitors or volunteers in the building until the order seems to change and we can freely let some more people in. Parent expectations. We are asking that parents provide a mask for your child, and the reason we're asking for this is everybody is different with the way and the kind of mask they like. So work with your family, work with your students, start wearing the mask, find out what's comfortable to them, what works for them, and just make it so they are the most comfortable. Provide a water bottle. Make sure, even though we are looking into a way that maybe we can do temperature checks here, we do ask every family to do a well check. We will be sending home a sheet that the health department has created and the CDC has created that is a really nice sheet that you can keep on your fridge and just run through it with your students every day. If a temperature is over 100 degrees or showing symptoms, the child must stay home and you need to immediately contact us so we know why they are out. Reduce trips to the school. That goes back to try to make sure your child brings everything to school that they need so then you're not coming back and forth in the holding tank. Provide the school with the most up-to-date contact information, emergency. We understand a lot of parents work while your student's here. Please have some backup people just in case your child falls ill or is a close contact and we need to have someone come pick them up. Develop plans for that person, please. Review school routines and protocols with your students. Review and go over some of the safety things that you've read about, and then we will send home another, basically like a parent handbook, and you can review it with your children. As I said, practice wearing your mask with your younger students and communicate with the school and the administration and nurse if you are required to quarantine or have a positive case in your family. As I stated earlier, at the moment the health department's a little backlogged. We really need your help to let us know immediately and let us maybe personally call them and get the information you need as well as what we need. Things that we've already purchased in the district to prepare for the students to return. Mr. Pagnato, since March, April, May, has been pricing out. We have bought sanitizer. We've bought freestanding sanitizer stations, soap, sanitizing wipes, the tubs with paper towels so we can keep recreating our own so we're never out of the sanitizing wipes. Lightweight shields for staff and students were donated. Mr. Matos was able to get shields donated, so if we are to return and able to wear shields, we have, they're like an ounce. They're really lightweight for the students. We did buy extra masks. This is a picture of the desk barrier. Some parents asked, could we buy them? No, we will get them. And then desk barriers are going to be really important if a teacher wants to pull kids a little closer and do a small group at a horseshoe table, so they still could be in close proximity with the books and stuff, but the kids and the adult are still safe because you're within like 2 feet, but you can stay a little safer for a 5-10 minute quick lesson. Gloves, signage, and electrostatic sprayer. Those are the things we have on hand right now. Face coverings. As I mentioned, it is mandatory now. They are saying the cloth mask is what is required. As you've noticed lately, the older kids have started wearing, they're called fisherman's masks or gator masks. Some kids are more comfortable with them. As you see, it comes all the way up over the nose. I mean, students will be asked to keep them so they come down over their ears and not kind of bring them up so you can't see them, but they will be permitted as long as they follow the dress code policy. As we see up above, masks can have any decorations, flowers, signage, wording on them. So we are saying that any mask still has to follow the dress code policy for what may be allowed on a shirt or something. We are asking parents, start practice wearing the masks, especially now that it is K-12 mandate. Do some fun things, do some selfies, and again, make your child actively engaged in selecting their masks that they want. As we've kind of gone through this schedule change, there's no change to the date of the calendar. The teachers will be here getting prepared for your students that week that the students would have been here. We are just moving the student start date to the 8th. Conferences at this time will be remote and phone conferences. So parents, you will be able to sign up for a conference, but it'll either be through Google Meet if you're capable of that, or a phone conference. Open house and meet the teacher night. We are adjusting now that we've asked in the board and they have approved to move the student start date. In the middle school and the high school, we'll be sending stuff out, and we will work on getting our students so they can enter, get their schedule, go to their locker, and come back down. We will probably most likely limit it to students, but prior to this, we were not able to do that if it was a full group coming in. Kindergarten screening, that was a question. Yes, Mr. Matos will run kindergarten screening. You will be assigned a time during the week of the 24th, since the students will not be in the building. And as I said, we're going to do alternating days, full days of academic, less disruption of days academic by going alternating days. This is just a continuation of the cleaning supplies that we have purchased, so parents are aware what we have here, keeping their children safe. I will be meeting next Monday night with the medical advisory team. The goal of this team is to kind of review the orders, review Mahoning County Health Department, put some plans in place, put some things in place so that when we do have a case, we know exactly step 1, 2, 3, what we need to do, and we do it the same way every single time. It also will benefit the school district to have these people that we can reach out to immediately in cases that maybe are a little different, and walk through exactly how to do it. Before and after care continues as usual. So we will still have it. What you do have to do this year, due to COVID and other illnesses, parents must sign up, have their paperwork completed. Any child that does not have paperwork completed in the medical emergency form with the daycare cannot just be dropped into daycare. So parents, I understand if you're running a few minutes late, we'll have to work with the secretaries and the building principal to have that child, watched for a little while. But due to the medical rise of COVID in some areas, not knowing some of the families, we want to make sure only the students that are signed up are in our care. Remote learning, if that does not comfort families, knowing that your classroom may only have 10 kids and they will be spread out, we are still offering remote learning. As we said, it is a 9-week commitment or a 12-week or a year-long commitment. Parents, if you start out on remote at the end of 9 weeks and you feel you want your child to be in school, you just need to contact your building counselor, administrator, and we will put you in a schedule. If you are at the end of 9 weeks and you've been doing in class and you want to switch to remote, same thing. Please communicate with your building principal. We said we will use Google Classroom. Attendance will be taken. That was a big concern last year from staff and parents, that the kids seemed to just do education 24 hours a day when they felt like they could get to it, and teachers were on call 24 hours a day. We will ask the students, they will be assigned assignments, they will be a date, time, when things are due. If they're asked to be on a Google Meet with the person in charge of them, they will be required to sign in. If they cannot do these things, then in fact, that will affect their attendance. If your remote breaks down, your online breaks down, your computer breaks down, you can't do remote learning on that day, you need to immediately alert our administration so our technology department can assist, and then you won't be held harmful for not being able to complete activities that day. Again, Chromebooks will be provided. Develop an exception. Balancing between screen time and paper pencil time. So even high schoolers and middle schoolers that are on remote learning, there will be times that we will encourage them maybe to do some paper pencil activities, to do some other activities, maybe take a screenshot and send it in to us. As I mentioned with elementary, we will also work with, if a family chooses a remote for 9 weeks, we will get the workbooks home to them. We will get the activities that they're doing in school that are paper pencil, because we do believe there needs to be a balance between both. As I mentioned, remote education and extracurricular athletics are permitted. We ask that you talk to the administrator, and this is the reason I was asked, why is this important? We just want to make sure that a child who is on remote, with the new attendance requirements, with some of the work that is needing to be done, that they understand they're being held to the same standard as a classroom student, so they can't fall behind, they can't be absent an excessive amount of time. Their eligibility to play that sport is exactly as the students in the classroom. So they will need to work with our administrators to make sure that they're not falling behind and technically becoming ineligible to play the sport. So we want to make sure we review that with families so that they are aware of it, so if it were to rise. I went over, if you begin the year, remote learning notifications. I know many parents were hesitant to send the remote learning back. Knowing now that we've kind of altered our plan, if you have sent your remote back and you would like to be remote and you just heard our new plan and you are comfortable with only being in a class of 10 kids, we ask you call your building secretary and have them change what your choice is. If you are still wanting to choose remote, we're asking that you get that back to us no later than Friday. And to make it easier, you can just call the building secretary and they can mark it down for you. If you don't have to come drop it off. You could put it in the mail, or you could just pick up the phone and let us know exactly which choice you would pick. Another concern was IEPs, 504s, students who receive service. If they are remote, we will work very closely with Ms. Lewis, offer teletherapy. We will offer Google Classrooms face-to-face, different work with students that are on IEPs. We will make sure that their service does not falter and that they are provided an equal access to education. I've gone over most of these. These were some of the parents' medical concerns. We will send home a sheet that shows the symptoms so they can clearly look at it. The protocol, if siblings are sent home, yes, the rest of the family will be sent home because they would be considered close contact. Students who went home sick with COVID symptoms and do not have a positive test result need to stay home until they've received clearance from a doctor. So those are some of the concerns that were raised. Who needs to be quarantined? Again, the CDC and the health department states that anyone who has been in close contact with somebody who has COVID must be quarantined. Lately, I've also been seeing anybody who might have symptoms that the doctor isn't sure and they're waiting to be able to get into a test. They've been told to stay home until you can be tested. What will happen if staff member, we talked about that. And the health department is the one that's supposed to notify us if there are positive cases, but we are begging our families, just call us. Again, I can pick up the phone and call somebody at the health department and probably get the answer you need immediately instead of waiting for them to call you after your results. So please don't hesitate to call the district. We can get a hold of them for you and help you out with your concerns and questions too. And we will be training our staff with all of that information. So that is our plan to return to school safely, healthy, offering social emotional learning, being fiscally responsible, and not, in my opinion, causing a repetitive academic disruption because students are constantly at close contact being sent home because we cannot socially distance in the building. So, any questions from the board?
Actually, I have a couple parents. If you can address what entails the remote learning, them taking attendance, are they going to be in an active class on Google, being taught?
Depending on the amount of students that sign up for remote 9-week learning, we will evaluate our staffing here in the building, and if there's, like, say, 15 students in the middle school that choose remote, we will assign them to that teacher. That teacher will collaborate with the classroom teachers in uploading things to Google Classroom that would mirror the same lessons going on and do Google Meet. So they, in a sense, would be assigned a teacher to offer that. We are not doing a remote right into the classroom, but it would be a teacher who would keep up with them during the day, making sure their assignments are done in timely fashion, doing a Google Meet for remediation or anything. But we don't, without knowing the size, we're trying to figure that out with them coming back. But if there's enough of a grouping, we would need to do that. And then attendance, that person would be responsible for check completion of assignments and that they're signing on and doing things. They would do the attendance.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so
I don't hear you. I want to talk in mine.
the
contact tracing that you talked about, is that mandate or suggestion from the health department?
They tell us that they have to stay out 14 days.
For the contact tracing, I mean. So they want to know everybody that's been within 6 feet of that kid.
We played out the scenario yesterday, and that's, I think, when it became a little alarming to us at a high school level. If a child is in the middle of the classroom and we find out they're positive, and it's, they travel 5 times in a high school, 5 different groups of people because high schools have to transition because of schedules, that child might have came in contact with over 30 students that have to now be quarantined. And then after 14 days, they come back, and another student in that classroom that's on the opposite side of their circle tests positive. That child could, in a sense, be out again for 14 days. So the academic continual disruption, because we are not doing 6 feet. If we have a positive case in our classroom and the health department calls me and says, well, were they 6 feet or more apart? And I say, yes, absolutely. They'll tell me that they don't have to contact trace those students, so only that student will be the one out of the room.
And again, that's part of the reason for going this way, is so that because that could turn into just a nightmare if basically having to close the school down, I would assume,
Yeah.
and stuff there.
And one of our biggest concerns as educators in the entire United States was shutting down of education. Our teachers in the world of education did a fabulous job switching from what they knew to something new on a dime. I mean, they did it instantly. And we can never say when you immediately throw yourself into something that you're perfect at it. So we will offer professional development, and we will provide teachers even more resources and tools and knowledge on how to help those students. But the reality is, even 3 days every other week and 2 days for a full day of rich academic instruction is better than constantly being out of the school and just the teacher trying to make sure they're connecting with them. It won't work effectively.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, and I'll say that, I don't, is as good as all the staff, and not only in this school, but in other schools tried to do, remote. It's obviously very obvious that face-to-face can't be replaced by remote and stuff. So for anybody to say that you're getting the same quality of education remotely would not be a true statement, in my opinion, at least.
And another thing this plan does for us in the restart, there was a huge component that we need to assess the students and intervene. Where are their gaps, and intervene? So when you only have 10 to 12 kids in your room, you're going to be able to have some self-independent working and maybe pull the 2 kids and do different activities because you're not dealing with an entire classroom. You're almost running a smaller group intervention every single day in your classroom. So we're going to be able to better meet students' gaps and needs and get them filled quicker too.
And I don't think there's anything that we're saying here, if let's go through half the school year, if when we get to January and we see that we can bring kids back fully because things have changed, there's nothing keeping us from changing. I would assume we would probably try to wait to the end of a 9-week period before we did that probably, but irregardless, we can bring kids back in full time if need be.
Absolutely.
If the circumstances warrant, let's put it that
Watching
way.
the circumstances, and at that point, parents that have maybe been remote that might just want to remain remote and get a better count, parents will feel more comfortable to know what our true enrollment would be. And the fact that we're back to our normal bus route, it's not causing this continued disruption of schedules. We will just maintain the schedule. It would just be every day instead of every other day.
Right. Other questions for Bethany?
Do you have another one?
Along the lines of what Ralph was saying, I think I'd encourage, you guys have done an excellent job coming up with a plan, and I mean, I know there's a lot of people that don't want to see this plan, and I'm one of them, but I don't think we have a whole lot of options at this point, but I would challenge you to just keep an open mind going into this. Once we get started, there's a lot of other plans that are being put in place that you could read any article on the internet about, and maybe we're going to start seeing that the cases are going down and we can get kids back in the classrooms. And I'm just going to, just say that I think we need to keep an open mind about getting them back, because a lot of the research, if you go and look on your own instead of just listening to what's being fed, a lot of the research is showing that things are going in a different direction than I think what we're being pointed in. And I'm kind of disappointed to see what the health department's come up with here, because I think we're dancing a dangerous line, doing a disservice to a lot of kids.
And in regards to that, I did look into a few of the schools that were doing our original plan, and they are at about 60, max 70% coming back, not 89, 90%. So they actually have a large population that either were already on a remote academy, so they maintained remote academy, and because they had these big remote academies, more kids knew what it was, they just chose to do it. So their enrollment population that was returning is low. So I did look into that today for some of them.
And I'd like to add too, I'll look to Mr. Phillips here, he's read off, what we here at South Range have been cut from the state, and what COVID money is coming our way from a federal standpoint, and our net is a net loss, correct, in that statement?
Even for the $61,000 that is going to come in this year on top of the $91,000 that came in last year in COVID CARES Act money, our net is still $79,000 in the negative.
And I think, and I could, maybe Bethany can speak to that, I think some of the districts that are putting in the thermal scanners and some of those types of things, and maybe coming back more full force, have had additional funds come their way that they've been able to pay for with that.
Yes.
Where we're a little bit different
Right.
Here. And I think we have to also keep in mind during all this and the money that we're spending that, those are dollars, and that will change when we get out. I know we'll have a new 5-year forecast in October, but the true picture will be when we get out to May of next year, what that 5-year forecast is going to look like. Because obviously when Mr. Phillips forecast the last update, we weren't forecasting or even to foresee some of the expenditures that we were going to have. And so, that's going to play into it as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Phillips.
I think I whined last May how tough it is to forecast amid the COVID situation. I'm probably going to whine even louder because we're running dual programs now to do, no matter what the split is, 80-10 or 60-40 or 50-50, to be able to supply and run 2 different programs is going to be expensive. So I don't expect this fiscal year to end up with a 3% less expenditures than whatever the forecast would have been, like it did last year, because we're going to run 2 different programs. Last year in May, when this happened, we were all one program. It was all online, and that saved us money. We're going to have custodians with an additional custodian and additional supplies. We may have to have additional academic help for the kids in school as well as the kids online, and we just don't know. It's going to be a very tough forecasting season.
And add a few more comments here before, and I don't know if Bethany's done or not, but in case some folks tune out after that, I want to publicly say to the board, the administrators, our people watching, that not everybody's seeing how hard it is and the effort that Mrs. Carlson's putting in, as well as all of our administrators, some of our teaching staff. They've been working just, I'm going to say almost day and night, trying to figure out, and I believe today somebody told me that they were working on their 5th plan. So, Are we going to get everything right and 100% correct? The answer is no, we're not. But we're going to work very hard to keep everybody's children safe, keep all of our staff safe, everybody that comes in contact with. We're going to try to do the right things, cost effective, not cutting corners to protect anybody, but also trying to do it cost effective. I would also say that, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Carlson. You know, she's being, not only is she becoming our new superintendent, but she's been thrown into something that even those with years of experience aren't quite sure how to handle. And I just want to commend her for the time and the effort that she's putting in and trying to do everything right. And I also want to commend all of the principals and all of our administrative team for the hard work that they're doing, because we do have a top-notch team out there. And again, they're all working together as one group to try to do what's best for all of our students, our parents, and our staff. So I just want to make sure, please don't be overly harsh and get upset. You know, if you have concerns, please bring them. We will address those and do to the best of our ability. This board cares very deeply about everybody in this school district, and we as a board are collaborating and trying to do the right thing as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mrs. Carlson.
Thank you. It has been a very, I don't want to say bumpy ride. It's just constantly something new. I am grateful and blessed for this team over here, because everything and anything I needed since June, they've been here. They have given up a lot of their break and vacation, and I can't thank them enough for that. They've been right beside me the entire way. So another reason which makes South Range great is that team right over there. And I cannot thank them enough. And I thank all of you for your support with this and understanding that, you know, we tried to do what we in our hearts know kids need to be here. And it's just, as you said, it's not academically, socially, emotionally, or fiscally responsible to do it right this time.
Mrs. Carlson, I just have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Sorry. One of the parents wants to know, what are we doing about the extra classes like art and gym? Will they also be doing that remotely?
If they're remote, yeah, we'll have somebody put some things out there.
And what about the advanced classes, like math, advanced math? How will that be addressed?
As I said before, if they're on a 9-week, they'll work with the advanced math person and they'll upload the same activities, but a different teacher will just be responsible for making sure that they're working through them.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if there is nothing else as far as reentry goes, we do have an executive session scheduled to under Ohio Revised Code 121.22 and Board Policy 0166 for the consideration of an appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee, and also for the possible sale or purchase of property. Could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Who moved,
Brian
please?
moves.
Yeah, we have to do public participation.
I'm sorry, what?
It's not on the agenda.
I mean, I thought we kind of addressed the public participation with the text, the questions that were coming in. And
I have something I wanted to say if that's.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there
no.
were, I thought it was just
Yeah.
staff. I'm sorry, yes, go ahead,
Okay, I
state your
didn't see it on the
name.
agenda to have a public participation, but thank you. I do appreciate being able to say something. Congratulations, first and all, Superintendent Carlson. So my name's Holly Jacobs, And I have 4 kids at South Range, 2 graduated already, and 2 currently in school. I'm here in my capacity as a parent, and a little disappointed to hear the change here, I have to say. I would hope that as soon as we possibly could get back to the 5 days, that would be our goal. But I do understand it's difficult. The one thing I wanted to point out to this board, and I'm sure you know about it, is the Department of Health order as it relates to the sports. And I didn't hear anything about that, so I wanted to bring that up. You know, the order as it relates to testing 72 hours before a contest and eliminating the entire team for one positive result and isolating the athletes from the time of the test to the time of the contest, those 3 things are not really in line with the way that a lot of the other guidelines and things that are happening, you know, are going. First of all, I want to point out to this board that the isolation from the time of the testing to the contest, you know, that could be, they need the test within 72 hours. You know, what are we going to do with these kids if there's a backlog and you have to wait 3 days for a test? That's not realistic, it's not reasonable, it's not rational. And I have to think that this order is partly written to not achieve having the sports go forward. And, you know, sometimes these things are written in a way to protect not who they look like they're intended to protect, but the schools, the government, but everybody but the students. And, you know, this order is almost unachievable with the 3 days test result turnaround. It's financially, I don't know that the school districts, I don't know about South Range, maybe we can afford it, but, and you're talking about all the contact sports, football, basketball, soccer, and wrestling before every match or game. That sounds like that's going to be a lot of money. Also, as for banning the entire team, as you pointed out, Superintendent, if someone has a positive result and they're sitting in class, it's 6 feet and 15 minutes of time being with someone. If you walk past someone in a grocery store and they have COVID and you're within 2 feet of them and you walk past them, you are not going to get this virus. And I think that is the science that is out there. So a contact sport, I've talked to players, I've talked to coaches, there are a lot of kids who are not even going to come within 6 feet of each other for 15 minutes. You could have a freshman linebacker who's not going to come anywhere near your varsity linebacker, and for 15 minutes, you know, they might not even know each other or talk to each other. Right. So why are we not using these same rules in all the arenas? And for the contact sports, I mean, you know, I drafted a petition. I hope people are watching this and hearing this. I would be willing to take a petition to the Department of Health. I would hope this school board is asking these questions of the Department of Health. You know, my daughter was a senior last year, and as much as I thank everything that was done by this school for everything they did for the seniors last year, I think everyone knows and understands that those kids were denied things that everybody else gets their senior year. Is it the end of the world not to go to your senior prom? Well, to my daughter it was, but no, it's not. But yes, they were deprived of a lot of things. I don't want to see more students and more classes being deprived of things. These kids are and have been working so hard. They have been waiting since March to play these sports. They need to get back to school. They need a social life. Dare I speak the words suicide, drug abuse, boredom, academic slipping, all of these things. There's coronavirus, but there's a lot more out there. And I know you agree with me. I know you understand. I just think we need to stand up for our kids, and I think standing up and looking at that order and expressing our view that it's unreasonable and we're not going to be able to achieve it. Therefore, I ask, why is that order written that way?
And I'm gonna. You have no argument for me, and I would say that. And I only heard a little bit today, but I know that at least on talk radio today, that was being addressed. And my understanding is that Governor DeWine is going to be on the Dan Rivers show tomorrow, and Dan Rivers has, is going to question him about that and stuff. And I agree. And as far as the cost alone it would make it prohibitive to a district to be able to do that and stuff. So,
well, I'm glad to hear that, but it's pockets of a lot of people standing up and pushing back on an order that doesn't make sense and is not achievable. And we do need to look out for these kids. And there's academics, there are sports, there's a lot involved in this. And I think sometimes adults lose sight of what their worlds consist of. And it's scary to think of a whole nother school year of less, interaction, continued looking at the computers, and no sports on top of it. I'm not sure that the balance weighs in favor of doing that. And I don't think it does. But I mean, there might be something the school board could do. Contact me. I will send a petition to the Department of Health and to the governor. I'm serious about this. I think we need to do something about it.
Holly, I think a lot of us parents totally agree with you, but Donnie Farron, the athletic director, would like to say something in response.
Holly, that was an order that came out this weekend. Today, the press conference that they had, Lieutenant Governor Husted. That is not, the 72-hour testing is not for K-12 athletes as it is for college athletes.
So they changed it?
That's what he said today. And
So they might be changing it.
I think if you had the 72-hour thing, basically they were putting it back on all of our school boards and our schools to say, we can't do it. Yeah. But the blame wasn't going to be on them, it was going to be on. Yeah, I agree. I mean, change that today. And I think that probably goes to a lot of people raising their voices and stuff. My understanding was there was a petition out there trying to get that changed. And I think the struggle for whether it's this board administration or any other board administration is, we got things changing by the hour right now. We're not talking by the week, by the day. I mean, we're talking by the hour, and it's very disheartening. And I'll publicly say that. It's very disheartening with what's going on out there right now. And you're just hearing so much that you kind of don't know what to believe and what's truth and what's not truth right now. So
let's push back and stand up for what we know is right.
Yep.
And actually, on us starting back to school, we originally decided we wanted to go 5 days, but with the restrictions and the regulations they put forth on us, we're not able to do that, and that's why they came up with the hybrid plan.
I think that's one thing that's been frustrating for a lot of school boards, all around, is just the states making decisions that kind of affect us, and then they back off and kind of make it seem like they're going to give us local control, and then they take control.
And then they take
So
control.
It's just a back and forth every time. It seems like
Consistently, and makes it very difficult and stuff there. And I'm sorry, light's very blinding. I don't even know who's sitting there. Anybody else have something to say? I sure wasn't trying to cut anybody off here. So, and that.
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. Anybody else board-wise? Okay, I won't read through that. Going to executive session. Brian moved. May we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Terry seconds. Mr. Phillips, roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Terry Lally,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz,
Yes.
Amy White, Brian Bagwell.
Board enters executive session at 7:09 PM. I truly thought it was staff or somebody Zoom out there. I didn't know there was anybody. I didn't know, I thought it was staff. Thank you all for, I meant what I said, thank you all for your hard effort. I mean, that's the thing. I know. So much of this stuff makes no sense once they happen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's inside. But I look at it, when I got 2 soccer games a week and a football game, that's $1,000 hit right there in officials. If you're not gonna tell me fans, I don't care about the testing.
And the thing is, we can't, even if we had general fund, you're only allowed to spend 1/2 of 1% of your property tax.
That's-
So we get slapped.
that's
We're
the
not allowed to
problem.
spend that much general fund money to run an athletic program.
Oh, you're not?
See, that's the problem with that, you know, is that you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, you don't have to do the testing now, but we're not gonna allow you to have fans. Okay, well, if you don't let you have fans, then what do you do?
I'm telling you, it's on the win or the play. I'm just telling you, a revolt.
I didn't wanna say it out loud, but I was glad I said it, because you know what? Because it's not, the state is not going to say, no, you can't do it. They're gonna force schools, because then they look.
No one wants to look bad.
Although I still believe what I heard today. I told you beforehand, the line's not gonna run it.
I'll email you.
So we don't care.
No, and Jim disagrees with me to a point, but I don't think the line's gonna run it either. So he wants me to take that over. So he's gonna come back in August and say, yep, you can now do this, and now he looks up what they do. But I mean, that's the financial part of it, no, I told you, there's no way, we can't have fans outdoors. We can't offer it. Have a good one. It'll change tomorrow.
Okay, the board's back in regular session at 7:35 PM. Mrs. Carlson, personnel.
Yes, I would like to ask the board to approve for the 2021 school year the following people or person as a substitute teacher on an as-needed basis as long as all criteria is met: current certifications, license, TV tests, test results, resume, FBI, and BCI checks. We will need an occupational therapist substitute throughout the year, at the beginning of the year, due to our occupational therapist needing time off. Jeannie Seifert is an occupational therapist and is willing to substitute for us at a rate of $22 an hour. Approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2021 school year. Compensation of said contract is pending official start date and subsequent completion of assigned duties as per the SREA and SRBOE negotiated agreement. Savannah Taylor, middle school volleyball coach. Marissa Miller, middle school volleyball coach. Jacob Zinni, assistant coach football. Joseph Staffeld, assistant coach soccer, boys coach soccer. John Cullen, boys varsity basketball coach. Jeff Fischel, girls varsity basketball coach. Levi Hively, high school wrestling coach. Craig Brinker, middle school wrestling coach. Todd Irons, boys assistant basketball coach.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the personnel?
I motion.
Terry moves. Can I have a second?
Second.
Taylor seconds. Mr. Phillips, roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz.
Yes.
Terry Lally.
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Amy White,
Answering a question.
Corey Yocum.
Yep.
I figured.
Brian Bagwell.
Brian Bagwell.
Brian Bagwell?
Yeah.
Well, I marked you. Oh, wait a minute. Your name's not on there.
That's what happens when you cut and paste things.
That's because that's
Add
what it
his
says
name.
there.
Sorry about that.
Hi, Corey.
Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Taylor moves. Can we have a second?
I second.
Brian seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned and be back in a couple of weeks, I guess.
We hope it's not long.
Yeah, we do.